Hello my friends, Venextron here, and today I'm going to be telling you some of my predictions for the Forsaken DLC that's coming to Destiny 2 in September. My first prediction: I believe that Prince Uldren Sov, the main antagonist, presumably, is either going to be in the story exclusively, or he could also be in the raid as either a boss or another enemy. Now obviously he's a villain for the story. That's been made apparent by him killing off Cage 6. However, there's a chance he could show up in the Dreaming City. Something that we've been told constantly by Bungie devs is that this is going to be a very unique raid, as it's going to be much more heavily linked with the story than any of the previous raids in Destiny 2 or Destiny 1's history. Another thing that's been mentioned, which I find very interesting, is that one dev actually made an interesting comment about the bosses. He referenced the fact that a lot of the bosses in Destiny 2 and Destiny 1 in the raids were pretty much just bigger versions of the enemies that we already fight, and he said that it's going to be different with this raid. Now obviously this is all speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Uldren in the raid. The only thing for me personally is, if I found out that Uldren was in the raid, I'd like to see some interesting mechanics take place. But I have complete faith that the team in charge of the raid are going to have something sorted out for that. But, you know, for all we know, he could just be something that we either kill or defeat at the end of the story, and I'd be fine with that too myself. My second prediction: I believe that Variks is against us. And there's actually been a few minor hints at this for a while now. I'm going to start off with his relationship with Uldren. You may not know this, but Variks and Uldren have worked together in the past. Maybe it's not, we've never seen them work together maybe directly, like in person, but we do know that Variks has been in contact, and he has worked in the past with the Crows, who basically serve Uldren. If you don't know what the Crows are, they're basically kind of like his spies, Uldren's spies. In the Grimoire cards, Petra Venj actually states that she is fully aware that there is information that the Crows, give back that only Variks gets and she doesn't get. And obviously the Crows are getting this information either, out in the field or from Uldren. So we do know that there's a little bit of an interesting relationship going on between Variks and Uldren. Now, something in-game that we can see is in the beginning of the Destiny 2 vanilla campaign, when you're in the EDZ and you're in the church, you're told to check out this banner. Now, obviously there's two different types of dialogue. They put this in for people. This was an exclusively console thing, so if you had played Destiny 1 in the past, it would know this, and so the dialogue would be a little bit different. So if you had played Destiny 1, you would have recognized the banner, and so your ghost acknowledges this. So the banner that's in this church is a House of Judgment banner, and Variks is the only fallen, as far as we know, left of this house. So obviously this is from him. And I find this very interesting, as this area is pretty much controlled by either the Red Legion and the House of Dusk. And I mean, considering every single banner of every other house has been found in burnt up piles, I think it's kind of fascinating that this banner is completely fine and left alone by the House of Dusk. Another thing that we need to know with the House of Dusk is that they are very much linked with the House of Kings. Not only do we see some of them wearing bits of gold amidst their purple kind of outfits, but we do know that they operate using the House of Kings frequency. Something else, I think majority of people that keep up with Destiny news and lore is that Prince Uldren is like 99%. It's 99% certain that he's in control of the House of Kings. Again, we know this from the Grimoire, that after the battle with Oryx's fleet above Saturn, Aldrin managed to get to Mars. And again, you would have known this even if you didn't read the Grimoire cards. This is kind of a scannable item. You can find his ship in the Warmind DLC. And what Aldrin did was he allowed himself to be tracked and captured by the House of Kings. And eventually, once they were certain that he was no threat, they brought him before the Kell. And there's one line that says, "One Kell rises, the other bows his knee," or something like that. And obviously, this is a reference to Aldrin becoming Kell of the House of Kings. And so when you put two and two together, it's fairly certain that either the House of Kings are in control of the House of Dusk, or they're both the same thing. And why would Varix do this? Let's just assume for a second that Varix is against us, and he's either working with Aldrin, or he is working, on his own against us or against the Reef. Well, Varix has helped the Reef, the Awoken, and humanity in the past, but he owes us nothing, really. I'd say the only time we actually helped him out was probably in two different situations. The first situation was when we captured and eventually killed Skolas, who Varix really didn't like because of their past. And the second instance would have been when we managed to help him acquire an Elder Cipher. This is an item used by Kells. So, obviously, if you play Destiny, there's different types of the Fallen. You have your Dregs, then you have your Vandals, and then it goes up in size. And what determines this is the Fallen feed off a substance known as Ether, and the Kell decides who gets what amount of Ether. And he does this using the Elder Cipher. So we basically let Varix have this, which is strange because he's not the Kell of anybody. He's the only person left in his house. But his pure focus is solely on the reunification and the ascendance of the fallen people. And I don't know if he wants to be in charge. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But anyway, although we don't have a definitive answer, these are all different parts of the puzzle. And it is slightly confusing, and if I'm losing you in this, I do apologize. But there are different parts of the puzzle here, and when you try and put them together, the image you get at the end is very blurry. But one thing is certain, and it's that there's a lot of evidence pointing out that Varix is probably not on our side anymore. But that's just a prediction, and it might not happen. He could be. There have been hints that he is going to be in charge of like a new kind of Prison of Elders mode. And I'd be fine with that, but I think it would be a very interesting turn to see him turn against us and try and become the next Kell of Kells or something. My third prediction, I believe that there will be Hive involvement. Now, I actually began to work on this video a while back, but recently this has only just become clearer now. So I believe there's going to be a Hive involvement, and this theory came when different images of the Scorn enemies, there was a bit of Hive resemblance there. There's one enemy, was it the Screeb or something like that? He looks awfully similar to a Cursed Thrall. There's another that kind of looks like an Ogre. And then, of course, in Rise of Iron, we had the Splicers experimenting on the Hive, and there was a lot of hints that there was something with the Hive that the Fallen were really fascinated with. And there was theories, were they consuming Hive worms, or was it Savathûn? But we actually have the answer, well, part of the answer anyway to that now. And I'm going to read this out for you. So, Game Informer is partnered with Bungie, and they are being given exclusive information, which they are in turn releasing slowly. And what they've done most recently is the 8 Barons of the Scorn that serve under Aldrin, their identities and their kind of personalities have been given to us. Now, there's one of these Barons and he looks very much Hive influenced. He has kind of the I'll see if I can put an image up there for you. He has just that kind of Hive look to him, and he also is using a Hive weapon. And in the trailer, we do see him come out of a Hive portal, which is very strange. So this guy, right? He's known as the Mindbender, Hirax the Mindbender, and this is how he's described. Now I'm reading this off GameRant, and I think they've kind of given their own summary of it. But anyway, the information's the same. He is perhaps the most fascinating of the Barons. While he was a Drake, Hirax descended into the Hellmouth on the moon, which was home to Crota and the Hive, and he emerged a completely different entity. Hirax commands a legion of Hive, and has even managed to create his own throne world, a feat usually reserved for only the most powerful and cunning Hive. He also has the ability to manipulate minds, and maybe one of the main reasons why Uldren struck out against the Vanguard. I don't believe that, but anyway, we'll continue. So Hirax's battle in the Tangled Shore actually takes place between the Reef and the Ascendant Plane of the Hive. So that's very interesting. We have a Dreg from the House of Exile, which that was the Fallen House stationed on the moon. And I don't know how he survived going into the Hellmouth, but anyway, something happened to him. Hopefully we get more information, because it's very fascinating. And he has returned not only alive, but he commands Hive. And he has his own throne world. This is very interesting, and personally, this is screaming Savathûn. I don't believe for a second that this is all his doing. I'm just gonna throw a guess out there. I wouldn't be surprised if Savathûn is using him. There's a chance that he's just really powerful, and the Hive respect that. But I don't know. Again, with this theory about Uldren having his mind manipulated, there's another image where he has that kind of take and you look to his face. I don't know. There's a lot. I don't want to spend this video theorizing too much. This is mainly just kind of bullet point predictions, but it's very interesting, and I guarantee that there will be, especially when you throw in the word Ascendant Realm, that's when you know you're getting some serious Hive information and influence. So that's that prediction anyway. There's definitely going to be some Hive involvement. It's not just going to be the Fallen. My next prediction is that, well, it's not really a prediction, it's pretty much been confirmed, but that the story is going to be in a different format. Destiny has a linear story. It's one mission to the next mission to the next mission. Sure, the areas are open, but you're kind of told where to go. It's very linear. It's going to be a bit different this time, at least for one part of the story. And obviously we're tasked with taking down these Barons, but the order that you go about in killing these Barons, it's going to be up to you. And this obviously is not linear. This is, you're given your own choice. I don't know if this is going to be a style that is present in the entirety of the story, but I really like it. And I feel if it's done well, if it's executed effectively, it's going to raise the bar for Destiny's stories. And I really hope if it does raise the bar, it's a standard that they're able to keep going forward with stories in the future. My next prediction, so obviously Cade's dead. He's gone permanently. There won't be any Cade 7 or any shenanigans like that. Since he's gone, there needs to be a new Hunter Vanguard. Now, my name is Bife, and other people have made videos about, you know, who they think's the next Vanguard's going to be. And everybody has ideas. They have their own little list of potential Hunter Vanguards. I personally believe for the Vanguard, it's between Shiro 4 and Anna Bray. For those of you who haven't played Destiny 1, Shiro 4 is a character that we were introduced to in the Rise of Iron DLC. Not too much about him was really told to us, if I'm being honest. He just kind of seemed, in my opinion, like a generic hunter. Pretty cool person. But, yeah. Just because of the fact that he's a hunter, I guess, and that he's got a name, that kind of puts him down on the list. But when you look at every other candidate, apart from Anna, he's pretty much the only one available. And then we have Anna Bray. The reason I believe that Anna Bray could be the Vanguard is that, well, to be honest, it's simply because she's in the game. That's it. I think because she's in the DLC, people are going to know who she is. Like, for example, if in Warmind Anna Bray never came back, and we had to do this all by ourselves, which, I mean, we kind of could have. I mean, Anna Bray didn't do that much, let's be honest. I mean, she understands Russian, but, I mean, if our ghost understands Russian too, so I don't know exactly if we really needed her, but let's just imagine that Warmind happened and she was never there. Forsaken happens, Cade 6 dies. The Vanguard, the surviving Vanguard members meet, and they're like, we need somebody. Who are we going to pick? In walks in this female hunter, and she's like, I'll do it. And everybody's like, who are you? And she's like, Anna Bray. And then of course all the characters like, oh yes, Anna Bray, the Legend of Twilight Gap, yes. And they start spouting out lore in the Grimoire. Of course, some of the community, the lore nerds, myself included, will be like, okay, that's pretty cool. They've brought back a legend, and this is a character who has proven herself in battle. She's a very powerful guardian. Her abilities, in terms of the light, are almost second to none of any of the other hunters we've seen. I'd say probably for her capabilities in using the light, she's more powerful than Shiro. But then you're going to have a lot of other characters, or not characters, but players, who will not have any idea who she is. And Bungie doesn't like doing that. They don't like introducing a character into the game if people aren't really going to know who they are. You can prove me wrong, that's fine, but just the way I look at it, I personally believe the only reason that she would be made Vanguard is simply because she's in the game. And that is why personally, I believe that between Shiro 4 and Anna Bray is going to be the Vanguard. I don't think she should be the Vanguard. I don't think, based on what we know about her personality, I don't think she would want to be the Vanguard. But simply because of the fact that she's in the game, and it's a character every single player will know, I think she'll be the Vanguard. If she's the Vanguard, I think it's going to be cheap. I won't be happy. Hashtag not my Vanguard. But I think that's the way it's going to be. Hey, it's a prediction. So I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I personally would prefer Shiro to be the Vanguard. Finally, my last prediction is, I strongly believe there's going to be a tease for either another DLC or D3 at the end of this story. Now, the DLC part, I'm kind of wavering a little bit. I think it was Game Informer or another, I think it may have been Game Informer or a different channel. I believe it was Game Informer. I can find out. But anyway, one of the channels on YouTube did that kind of, you know, like the 140 questions in like 5 minutes or whatever. And the guy was asking the two main devs who have been in every single interview for the most part, that are in charge of this DLC. And one of the questions was, apart from the annual pass, will there be any content or DLC? And I'm 100% certain that your man said no. Now this is interesting, because in the kind of roadmap that was shown at the end of the Destiny 2 vanilla campaign for where the next DLCs were going to be, after the Reef, there was the Dreadnought. And so if there won't be any, DLCs apart from the annual pass, and I doubt they would lock the Dreadnought behind the annual pass, then it's looking like the Dreadnought's probably going to be in D3. And that brings us to D3. So I believe that if there's I don't think they would put a teaser in this DLC for the annual pass. I think that's really lame, especially for people that don't want to buy it. It's either going to be a DLC or D3, and since it's looking like there's not going to be another DLC, there's probably like a good chance we'll be seeing a hint for D3. Now, at the end of the Taken King, there was that weird kind of dialogue from Eris Morn talking about, she's accepted her fate and she won't fail the queen, but that's who we presume she's talking about. They haven't done anything about that. They haven't paid off that kind of story arc, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, just to summarize that, I do think that there will be a hint for either D3 or another DLC. Now, what would I like to see, but there potentially won't happen? I want to see 9 lore. If you look at the Grimoire cards, the majority of the lore associated with the 9 is very confusing. It's very cryptic, and you won't be able to get a straight answer out of it. I think at this stage, since we're looking at the secrets of the Awoken and the fact that the Awoken are so heavily linked with the 9, I think it's about time we at least know what the 9 are. And this is going to tie in with another point later on. I've already mentioned this, but I would like Shiro to be the Vanguard. I know there's a good chance he won't be, but I would most certainly prefer to have him as the Vanguard over Anna Bray. Simply because it completely goes against her personality, and as a character, I feel like she's a bit of a letdown. Now, this is a bit more of a bigger point for me personally. I think this DLC needs to have a major impact on the world, and an example of this is Cade's death. There's a way of looking at his death that's a bit more skeptical, and it's that Destiny 2 has always been in a very bad place when it comes to the relationship between the game and the community, and potentially his death was pretty much just to get people to pre-order and to get mad at Uldren. His death needs to mean more than that. It needs to have an impact on the other characters, a very visible impact on the characters. You can't have them maybe cry for 30 seconds in one cutscene and then that's it, they're all fine. Just in general, like, us defeating the Scorn needs to mean something. And I'm going to give you another example, and this is going to be from Destiny 1. So we killed Crota. What did that accomplish? What impact did that have on the world? Crota was actively preparing his forces to finally invade Earth. Us killing him stopped that, but at the same time, it foreshadowed the Taken King DLC because his father Oryx was enraged at this, and he then began his journey towards Earth. Us defeating the Scorn and us defeating Uldren has to mean something. Potentially, does it mean... I've seen a theory from the Wicked Joker that this is all a test, or it's all set up by the 9. So if we defeat Uldren, is this going to get the 9 involved? Is it going to get Savathûn involved? It needs to mean something. I think there's a good chance it won't. I think they're probably just going to stick a little teaser in at the end or something. I don't know. But if it does have an impact, I think this DLC, the story at least, will be a very large success. And this again ties in with my next point. Questions need to be answered. If we look at the Warmind DLC, so many questions about Rasputin, Charlemagne, the Warminds in general, the Exos, I can't remember what it's called, the Crypt, I still have in mind now, but just so many different lore and grimoire and just mysteries. So much grimoire, lore, mysteries, and questions were not answered in that DLC. And when it comes to the Awoken, Man, there's so many questions. Um, I could spend several minutes just listing them off the top of my head, but obviously we're starting to get a bit long into the old video, so I'm just going to say that there are a lot of questions in regards to the Awoken and the Reef and the Nine and Savathun that really do need to be answered, and I think it's going to be a massive shame if they're not. I'd like to see a Taken War styled quest. So after you defeated, well, you thought you defeated Oryx in the story of the Taken King, the world opened up to you and you were given the Taken War quest, and it was almost like the campaign but without any cutscenes. It was a very long quest, very detailed, and it was very enjoyable, full of story and lore. I would love to see something similar to that happen after you defeat the Scorn, maybe even after the raid. Of course, that could just involve the raid, but you know. And finally, I would like to see a lot of exotic quests. Now, in Warmind, very few things actually kept people playing. The heroic strikes didn't go down well with people. People don't really care about the scores on the Nightfalls. Escalation Protocol, people found that too hard, so they're not really bothered. Though this kind of event that's out now, the Moments of Triumph or whatever, that's getting people interested, and you know, some people are going to bother, but others just won't. People have given up on it completely at this stage, which is a shame. But one thing that pretty much everybody did was everybody went to get the exotic weapons, and Bungie must have taken note of this, and I would not be surprised to see. I mean, we're getting something like, what, 15 exotics? Weapons and armor, 15? In the Forsaken DLC. I'm sure at least like half of them. Maybe not the armor, but probably at least half the weapons are probably going to be in a quest. That's what I'm thinking anyway. That's what I'd like to see. Now, this is just the final 2 points. This is what people should keep an eye out for. People should keep an eye on Eververse. So, as you may or may not know, a version of Destiny is coming to Korea. I think it's called something like Destiny Guardians. And obviously there's a different market in Korea, in that part of the world, and it's a lot more focused around the whole microtransactions. And so Eververse it functions completely different. I think if that style was to come to here, I think people would probably just boycott the game forever. But you never know. If Korea is really successful and people are enjoying it, you never know. They may start to do something with Eververse. I don't think they will, but just keep an eye on it, you know. And then finally, again, just D3 hints. I think it was roughly around this time with Destiny 1, so with the Taken King, that they began working on Destiny 2. So I'd say, I mean, of course they've had the concept for what they want to do with Destiny 2, or Destiny 3, sorry, since Destiny 2 launched. They've been kind of thinking up ideas, but they haven't been actively, you know, developing things. I'd say now is when, either now or maybe a few months ago, they've probably started properly working on Destiny 3. So just maybe in direction of the story, maybe some of the missions, they might put some hints in there. Anyway, these are just my thoughts. If you agree with me, that's awesome, let me know. If you disagree with me, that's awesome too, let me know and we'll talk about it in the comments. If you guys enjoyed watching, thank you, I really appreciate it. And if you want to stick around and just see more of my Destiny content, please subscribe. I'm actually going to be releasing my next Dark Souls video soon, hopefully. So if you guys are looking forward to that, just keep your eyes open and it should pop up one of these days. But anyway, that's it from me, guys, and as always, I'll see you next time.